Kia ora everybody, kia ora whānau. My name is Lindsay Mariana Tahitahi and I'm from Rotorua, Hinamore Point to be specific, Hinamore and Tanakai. I grew up too, running up the rock pretending that I was going to end up in that sort of romance. I was going to be able to swim across the Mokoia Island and meet my tane, and we were going to live happily ever after. I'm a mother of 3 beautiful children, and I have 4 mokopuna grandchildren. And 2 of my children live here in Tauranga, and my son is over in Te Awamotu. It's interesting when people say presentation, it makes it so formal. I don't want it to be formal. I was actually driving here today in my Kia. I have a modified vehicle that I can drive right in behind the steering wheel in this power chair, lock in, all push button controls, and make my way here independently. And as I switched on the radio this morning, amazing, what came out to me was values. And values without a narrative just don't work. And so the narrative or the story that I'm here today, it's not a presentation, it's about my life and what is community to me. I wanted to take it from 3 aspects: me, no community, and now my community. And so I did a lot of soul searching when Ruth asked me to come and share my story. And it's taken me these 3 days to sit down and reflect about what's happened in my life. And that has been sometimes painful, and it has been humorous, and it's ongoing, and it's still visionary. And this is what I come today with. I was actually adopted out of my Wiringi family into who have 17 children, I must add. Mum and Dad had 17 kids. Into my uncle and auntie's whānau of 9. So I had already had a very large community, and we all lived in Rotorua, and I always interacted with my whānau, both my adoptive and my biological. At the age of 7, my mum died of cancer. Changed the dynamic completely. And from a very early age, my role in my whānau was caregiver. I looked after Dad, I looked after my baby sister, I looked after the housekeeping, and I looked after the animals, and I looked after my siblings' children. By the time I was 10, I had 2 paid jobs at the local dairy and the fish and chip shop. Now, I want to say this in memory of my dad, who implanted in me by example I must add, a tenacity for life. My dad was from Te Kau in the far north. He married his wahine from Te Arawa, and He was in the Māori battalion. Dad was shot by a sniper in Florence and he lost his leg. And as an amputee, he brought us kids all up. He worked, he drove cars, he rode motorbikes, he took us camping. And we never saw Dad as having a label, disability. He didn't have one. He just didn't have one. Dad introduced us to community life in the music industry because we had a family band called the Renegades. He involved us in church community. So I personally had a very strong sense of community. In Hinamore Point, it was all whānau. We even embraced other whānau when the doctors started moving up for review and building their houses up at Hinamore Point. But we didn't exclude them, or we didn't say, you know, you're not allowed on our territory. We embraced them in our community. We could go to the hospital and, you know, ask personally to speak to Dr. Dempsey or ring him up on his phone. He wasn't unapproachable. And that was our life. But for me personally, even though I had the strong sense of community externally, internally, in my heart, I couldn't connect with it. Reason being, at the age of 2.5, I was burned, over 30% of my body with third-degree burns. I spent 2.5 years in hospital and my community became sterile and clinical. I was separated, taken out from my natural community. And what that actually put in me from the inside was that I was very much a loner and very much alone. I've written down here that this isolated me in my heart. I sit here and I look across and I think of whānau ora, and I went into their webpage and the first thing that hit me was Māori heart. I want a Māori heart. That inclusive, embracing, and I say that when I was thinking visually of it, which I do. I saw the Pākehā girl right in the front row of the kapahaka group because she wanted to be included, and she was embraced and had become part of her community and her culture too. I could move within community, but I could not connect. I truly was afraid. I had fear of rejection. I shied away from meaningful relationships, afraid of exposure. I was convinced that the fire had made me ugly. I had dreams, but never believed they would be fulfilled. Then at 17, I met my husband and father of my 3 children. It was a dream realised. He loved me and accepted me. We shared sports abilities, and I was a good caregiver. I looked after him well at home and our children well. And I even left my whānau to be absorbed by his whānau and his Māori community. 7.5 hours drive away from my own home. This community at first wasn't very kind to me. They didn't accept outsiders. It took me 3 years to build relationships. When I was there, part of the key connector was that I worked at the pub. I was the barmaid. I had a very strong work ethic. And so that was my way in. That was my door opener. And then after work, on the 31st of May 1987, I had a car accident. I broke my neck in 2 places, and my now experience is quadriplegia, paralysed from the armpits down, unable to walk, but not incomplete. I still have sensation. So I can tell when my boot's fallen off the foot plate and where my body's positioned in there. I'm very, very grateful for that ability to do those things and have those things. I was actually taken from my family for 1 year. My children were 6, 8 and 9 at the time, to Auckland, Middlemore Hospital, spinal unit. I'm not saying 1 week, I'm saying 1 whole year from my babies and from my community. Again, I was in a medical model, I was in a clinical situation, and I was learning to adapt to a totally different lifestyle. While I was there, my marriage broke up, and I had to fight to have my 3 children all live with me. I failed, but finally had to agree to take my eldest and my youngest home with me to Rotorua. My whare tapu whā had collapsed. I spent 3 years of not wanting to live. It was just all too hard. But like that big sunshine that we did in our community, there was a turning point in my life. The turning point came when I met God. My brother's love, my older brother's love and concern for me was voiced. I met Ruth, and I'll give you some explanation around that. Is that spiritually I knew I was accepted. I was wonderfully made, awesomely created. I wasn't a mistake. I belonged. I had a purpose. I had a plan. I had a life to live. I had things to give. My brother's love for me said, "Sis, you've become isolated. We need you to get you back in to the mainstream of life." But not so much mainstream in the way that we think about it, but in the river of life. Let's get out